I've lived in Montana my whole life, but nothing ever prepared me for that storm. The locals said it was the worst blizzard in 20 years, the kind that makes the mountains moan and turns the air into knives. I'd rented a small cabin near Flathead Lake, tucked between the frozen pines and the edge of the forest. It was supposed to be a week of peace and quiet. No city noise, no phone calls, no emails. Just me, the snow, and the kind of silence you can only find in the wilderness. But silence, I learned, can turn into something else entirely. When the wind starts whispering your name. The first night of the storm, the snow came down hard. The power flickered every few minutes until, around midnight, it finally gave out for good. The generator groaned once, sputtered, and died. I remember standing there, in that sudden blackness, the sound of the wind swallowing the world outside. The walls groaned, the windows rattled. The temperature dropped so fast. My breath turned to frost in the air. I wrapped myself in every blanket I could find and sat by the fire, listening to the storm claw at the cabin. Hours must have passed before I finally started drifting off, and that's when I heard it. A sound so faint at first, I thought I'd imagined it. A distant cry carried by the wind, but as the seconds passed, I realized it wasn't the wind at all. It was a voice, human, faint, broken, and coming from somewhere behind the cabin. It rose and fell like someone calling for help, only to be swallowed by the storm again. I told myself it was probably an echo, maybe some trick of the wind bouncing through the trees. But the sound came again, clearer this time, a long drawn-out cry that seemed soaked in pain. My chest tightened. No one should have been out there, not in that kind of cold. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my flashlight, and opened the door. The cold hit me like a fist. My lungs seized up. I could barely breathe. The snow was waist-deep in places, swirling so thick I could hardly see the porch steps. Still, I took a few steps out into the white, shining the flashlight toward the woods. "Hello," I yelled, but my voice was swallowed by the wind. "Is someone out there?" No answer. Just that same endless howl. Then I heard it again, that cry, but closer now, coming from deeper in the trees. Against every bit of logic, I started walking toward it. The beam of my flashlight danced over the snow, over the black outlines of trees, swaying under their icy weight. Every sound felt magnified. The crunch of my boots, the whistle of wind through the branches, my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. And then I saw them. Footprints. They were human, bare, and fresh. Long, narrow, with claw-like impressions at the tips. They led straight toward the thickest part of the woods. My first thought was, maybe someone got lost, a hiker or hunter caught in the storm. But as I followed the trail, that thought died in my throat. The prints were too long, too deep, and there was something wrong about the spacing, as if whoever made them had been running on all fours, dragging themselves through the snow. That's when I smelled it. It hit me like a wave, a stench so thick it stuck to the back of my throat. Rot, meat gone sour, the kind of smell that means something has been dead for a long, long time. I gagged and stumbled back, covering my mouth with my sleeve. My flashlight flickered, then steadied again. That's when I saw something move between the trees. It wasn't an animal. It was tall, too tall. The shape was thin, its limbs long and jagged, moving in short, jerky bursts like a puppet with broken strings. My heart froze. I blinked, and it was gone. Just the trees, swaying in the wind. I told myself I'd imagined it, that it was just shadows and snow. But deep down, something inside me knew better. The footprints ended abruptly. The snow beyond them was smooth, untouched, as if the storm itself had tried to cover whatever had been there. I turned back fast, half running through the snow, slipping and tripping over roots buried beneath the drifts. By the time I reached the cabin, my fingers were numb, and my heart was hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and dropped the flashlight. My breath came out in sharp bursts. I stood there for a long time, listening. The wind roared around the cabin, and beneath it, I thought I heard something else, something softer. Breathing. It came and went, slow and heavy, right outside the wall where my bed was. I stayed by the fire, gripping the poker like a weapon until morning. When the light finally broke, the storm hadn't eased up. The sky was a flat sheet of grey, the air thick with snow. My phone was dead, the lines frozen, and the road that led into town was buried under several feet of ice. I was completely cut off. I told myself I'd just ride it out, that help would come when the storm cleared. To distract myself, I went outside to chop wood. The air felt heavier that day, the silence deeper, like the world was holding its breath. As I carried the wood back to the porch, something caught my eye near the tree line. At first, I thought it was a shadow, but then I saw it clearly. A deer, or what was left of one. Its ribs were torn open, its flesh picked clean. The snow around it was splattered with frozen blood. The strangest part wasn't the kill, it was the tracks around it. Bare footprints again, leading away from the body, leading toward my cabin. I dropped the axe and stumbled backward. My mind was screaming at me to move, to run, to do something, but I couldn't. I just stood there staring at those tracks until the snow started to fill them in. Finally, I forced myself to go inside. I locked every door, every window, even pushed the couch against the entrance. The smell of decay lingered faintly in the air, like something had followed me inside. That night, I kept the fire roaring, but the cold still seeped in through the cracks. The wind howled, the logs snapped, and the shadows in the corners seemed darker than before. I sat there, staring at the window, trying not to blink. Sometime after midnight, I heard it again, scratching. It started faint, almost like the sound of tree branches rubbing against the siding. But then it grew louder, slower, deliberate. Scrape, pause, scrape, like claws dragging across the wood. My throat tightened. I held my breath, waiting. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold. 3 slow taps on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I turned my head, terrified. Through the frost-covered window, something was staring back at me. A face, pale, stretched tight over bone, the skin thin enough to see the veins underneath. Its eyes were sunken, but glowing faintly yellow, and its mouth hung open, showing jagged blackened teeth. It didn't move. It just watched me. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, the thing smiled. It lifted one skeletal hand and pressed it to the window. The glass fogged under its touch. Its fingers were too long. The nails cracked and yellow. It held its hand there for a moment before sliding it down, leaving streaks in the frost. When it finally pulled away, I could see a perfect handprint, still glistening. I stumbled backward, knocking over the chair behind me. My flashlight clattered to the floor. When I looked again, the window was empty. The scratching had stopped. Only the wind remained, howling louder than ever, as if mocking me. I didn't sleep after that. I sat by the dying fire until dawn, flinching at every creak of the cabin, every shift in the wind. And when the first light of morning broke through the storm, one thought kept circling in my head. I wasn't alone out there. Not anymore. When the first grey light of dawn broke through the storm, I already knew I couldn't stay another night. My body felt drained, my mind heavy, like something was sitting on my chest. The image of that pale, stretched face at the window burned behind my eyelids. I hadn't slept in nearly 36 hours, and every sound made me flinch. The groan of the wood, the crack of the fire, even the creak of the roof under the snow. I packed quickly, stuffing whatever food I had left into my bag. My plan was simple: follow the road west until I hit the main highway, or found a town. Anything was better than staying in that cabin. The wind outside hadn't calmed much, but it had shifted direction. It carried a low hum, like a voice far away, I pushed open the door and stepped into a world of white. The snow was deep enough to swallow my boots to the knees. The cold bit through every layer I had on, but I didn't stop. I locked the door behind me out of instinct, even though I knew a lock wouldn't matter if that thing decided to come back. I took one last look at the cabin, smoke still curling from the chimney, and turned toward the woods. The trees looked endless, black spires stretching into the grey sky. My only comfort was the faint path I'd made yesterday, while searching for the source of that cry. It was barely visible now, but I followed it, head down, pushing against the wind. For a while, there was only the sound of my footsteps and the crunch of snow. I almost began to believe I was safe, that maybe it had all been a nightmare, born from exhaustion and fear. But then I saw something that made my stomach twist. A tree stood ahead, its trunk shredded. Deep claw marks gouged the bark, long and uneven, like something had torn at it in a frenzy. The marks were fresh. The wood beneath was still pale, untouched by frost. Hanging from one of the lower branches was something that shouldn't have been there. A scrap of fabric, dark blue, fluttering weakly in the wind. I stepped closer, and my heart stopped. It was a piece of my jacket. I'd left my old jacket inside the cabin, hanging near the door. There was no way it could have ended up here. I turned around slowly, scanning the woods. The world was silent again, too silent. No wind, no creaking trees, just the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. And then, faintly beneath the silence, came a sound I'll never forget, a low guttural growl. It was deep and hollow, vibrating through the ground. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The sound came again, closer this time. It wasn't the growl of a bear or wolf. I'd grown up around those sounds. This was something else, something ancient. I gripped my flashlight and turned in a slow circle, scanning the trees. Nothing. Then the snow shifted behind me with a heavy thud. I spun around, and that's when I saw it. A figure, massive and hunched, moving between the trees. It wasn't walking so much as gliding, its limbs bending wrong, too long, too thin. I could see the outline of its rib cage through the grey skin, its shoulders sharp as blades. My flashlight trembled in my hand. The creature stopped, turned its head toward me, and the light caught its face. It wasn't a man, not anymore. Its eyes glowed like dying embers, and its mouth stretched into something that might have once been a grin. The smell hit me next, sweet and rotten, like old blood. I stumbled backward, nearly slipping in the snow, and then I ran. I didn't look back. Branches whipped against my face, tearing at my jacket. The snow blinded me, stung my eyes, filled my mouth when I gasped for air. The wind howled again, but this time I could hear something moving within it. The sound of bones snapping, of footsteps, too heavy to belong to anything human. I could feel it closing the distance. Then came the scream, not from me, from it, a high, shrill cry that pierced the air, echoing through the forest. It was inhuman, a sound of pure hunger. I tripped over a buried log and hit the ground hard, my flashlight flying from my hand. It rolled, flickering weakly against the snow, illuminating the fog that now curled around me like smoke. For a moment, there was nothing, no movement, no sound. And then I saw it, standing just beyond the beam of light. The Wendigo. It was worse than the stories, worse than the drawings I'd seen in old folklore books. Its body was skeletal, skin stretched thin over bones that looked sharp enough to cut. Its chest rose and fell in ragged, unnatural motions. Antlers jutted from its skull, broken and twisted, and its mouth hung open in a silent snarl. Steam rose from its body, as if it were too cold for this world. I tried to move, but my limbs refused to respond. I could only watch as it stepped closer. Each movement made the snow crunch and pop beneath its feet. When it leaned forward, I saw its face clearly. Once human, now hollowed, its flesh torn and grey. And then, to my horror, it whispered something. My name. It said my name. The voice was wrong, distorted, like a recording played backward. It sounded like it came from inside my own head. Then, with a sound that made my blood turn to ice, it spoke again, this time louder, cold, hungry. It rasped, words cracking through the air. "You came to my woods," I screamed, grabbed the flashlight and shined it straight into its face. The beam hit its eyes, and it reeled back with a hiss that sounded more like wind than anything living. I saw the texture of its skin, cracked, layered with frost, with veins like black roots running underneath. And deep in those eyes, for just a moment, I saw something almost human, pain, a memory of what it once was. Then it lunged. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. The forest seemed to close in around me, the storm roaring louder, the trees bending as if to block my path. I didn't think, didn't breathe, I just ran. Behind me, I could hear it crashing through the snow, moving faster than anything should be able to move. Every few seconds, I heard that rasping breath, closer and closer. My legs were numb, my hands bleeding from the cold. I stumbled through a ravine and saw something that looked like salvation, a faint light in the distance. Headlights. I screamed, waving my arms, forcing my body to move toward it. It was a snowplow crawling along the main road. The driver saw me and jumped out, shouting something I couldn't hear. I collapsed before I reached him, my knees hitting the ice. He caught me before I hit the ground, dragging me into the cab of the truck. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. All I could do was point toward the woods. The driver turned to look, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement there. Something tall slipping back into the trees. They said I was half frozen when they found me. They took me to a hospital in Kalispell, treated me for frostbite and shock. When the sheriff came to take my statement, I told him everything. The footprints, the face at the window, the whisper that said my name. He listened quietly, nodding every so often, and when I finished, he just said, "You're lucky. A hiker went missing out there last winter. Locals say the Wendigo takes the ones who get lost." I asked him if he believed that. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "There's a reason no one hunts those woods in winter. The old stories say the Wendigo was born from men who ate human flesh to survive the cold. They say that hunger never dies." A few days later, they found my cabin. The door had been ripped clean off the hinges. Everything inside was scattered, broken. The only thing untouched was the frost-covered window. And right there, pressed into the ice, was a handprint. Long, bony, with claws at the tips. Fresh. I left Montana after that, moved south, but sometimes, when the wind turns cold and the snow starts to fall, I hear it again. That scratching on the walls, that whisper, soft and hungry, calling my name through the storm. And on nights like that, when the world feels too quiet and the dark presses in, I wonder if I ever really made it out of those woods.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.